Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Franchise Tagged. My name is Will Ford. Thank you for joining me on my very first podcast. I'm going to be giving you the latest sports talk and news. First up, we're going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott and the controversy surrounding him. So he was at a St. Patrick's Day parade slash party, whatever you want to call it, and there's a video of him pulling down the shirt of a woman, exposing her breasts. So Zeke and this woman are more than likely drunk because it's the St. Patrick's Day parade. Everyone there is more than likely drunk. But this is a very bad look for Zeke because he is already involved in a domestic violence case. So the NFL is going to try to find a way to link this and that together. But to me, this is extremely disrespectful to women. The punishment, I don't know what the NFL is going to do as far as the punishment. I've heard a punishment up to a 6-game suspension, which I think is very that's a little much. I think a heavy fine is ample. Maybe at the most a 1-game suspension. This is not something to me that deserves that kind of punishment. But Zeke should not have done that. That is an absolute horrible look for him, and it's very disrespectful to women. It does not appear in the video that he had consent to do that. She was pulling down her own shirt earlier, as seen in the video, but it didn't appear that she consented to him doing it to her. A similar situation happened with Rob Gronkowski, tight end for the Patriots. Back in 2015, there's a video of him sticking his face in the chest of a woman. Now, to me, this situation is different than Ezekiel Elliott's. Number one, it's Rob Gronkowski. He is known for the party life. He loves to have fun. And there was more than likely consent involved because it's Rob Gronkowski. And no woman's going to say no to Rob Gronkowski, who loves to have fun, loves to party. Gronk more than likely won't be punished for that, and is probably not being looked at in the same light as Ezekiel Elliott. For me, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I hate to see Zeke involved in a matter like this, since he's already involved in a domestic violence case. It scares me as a fan because I don't want to see him suspended. Because obviously he is crucial to our success with the way he runs the ball, blocks, and catches out of the backfield. He's crucial to the Cowboys' success. To me, there should be some sort of punishment for this because this is extremely demeaning to women. It could be seen, as a sexual harassment, which is why I think the punishment could be a heavy one. But it's very unfortunate to know that Zeke has put himself in a situation like this. So moving along, let's talk about LaVar Ball and the comments he has made about his sons and about himself playing basketball. So LaVar Ball has compared his son Lonzo, the point guard for UCLA freshman, to Steph Curry. I definitely see the comparisons. He shoots lights out even though he has a awkward form, but he's a great shooter. He's an excellent passer, and teammates love playing with him. He's almost got that LeBron James feel to him, where he just shares the ball. He makes the right basketball plays. Everyone wants to play with him because he shares the ball so well. I think personally he's the number 1 pick in the draft. Over Markelle Fultz, from point guard from Washington. I have not seen a lot of Markelle Fultz. I don't know a lot about him, but to me, he's on a team that is not that good, even though he's the best player on that team, and the only player on that team. And Lonzo does have a lot more to work with, a lot more talent around him, and obviously it's a much more storied university than Washington. But to say that Lonzo is Steph Curry, is like Steph Curry, I think is wrong, because Lonzo has not proven himself to be that way yet. He needs to make it to the league, and he needs to play. I definitely think he has Steph Curry potential, but I don't think that if you were to switch Steph Curry and Lonzo Ball, that the way the Warriors are playing would be any different. I think they would be significantly worse just because Lonzo is young. Yes, he can do all these great things, but Steph Curry is probably the greatest shooter the NBA has ever seen, aside from Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. But to say that, Steph is as good as, Lonzo is as good as Steph, I think that's a little too early for those kind of comparisons. But LaVar has also said that Lonzo and his sons all will be deserving of a $1 billion shoe deal from a company. Now, to me, or to a lot of people, this sounds crazy. And it does sound crazy. It is crazy. But I think Lonzo is definitely deserving of a $1 billion shoe deal if, and only if, he's drafted by the Lakers. He turns that franchise around, because right now they are horrible. D'Angelo Russell is not working out for them. I don't see a long-term future for D'Angelo Russell in LA. I love Brandon Ingram there. I think he's maturing. He's getting better. I love Ivica Zubac. Larry Nance is a high flyer. Julius Randle, great rebounder, good at getting in the paint. The future is bright, but I don't think D'Angelo is the guy at point guard. I think Lonzo is. But if Lonzo goes to LA, turns that franchise around, and Magic Johnson markets him and, puts him out there, I think then he does deserve a $1 billion deal. So for LaVar to say that Lonzo is deserving of $1 billion, yeah, I think he could be. Now we'll see about LiAngelo and LaMelo and see what they're made of in college. They've already committed to UCLA. So we'll see with them, but I know Lonzo is definitely deserving if he goes to Los Angeles and if he gets marketed the right way. Then he will be deserving of that $1 billion. And that's a lot of money too. That's what LeBron James is making off his shoe deal. So, but I think Lonzo could be worth that. Now the big thing that LaVar has said that has really sparked a lot of people is that he says that in his day in college, he would beat MJ one-on-one. To me, this is insane. Absolutely insane. There's no way in the world you're going to beat MJ one-on-one. I looked at the numbers on LaVar Ball in college. He played 1 year, 23 games. He averaged a whopping 2.2 points. 2.2. 2.3 rebounds and 1 assist. MJ, when he was in college, played 101 games, averaged 17.7 points, 5 boards, and 1.8 assists. This is not even a comparison. There's no way LaVar Ball wins one-on-one versus MJ. He probably wouldn't even score. Yes, LaVar is 6'6". He was 6'6", 270 at the time. He's a big bruiser, but there's no way you're beating Michael Jordan. To me, the people that are the closest to beating Michael Jordan one-on-one, I think, are Kevin Durant with that length and size shooting over top, and Kobe Bryant, just because their games are literally the exact same thing, except Kobe was a little better shooter. But yeah, But Charles Barkley has fired back at LaVar Ball, challenging him to a one-on-one game, saying he could beat him. And LaVar has said that Charles doesn't want him and that he should stay behind the TNT desk and eat donuts. And, that's pretty funny, but, and it is true. But there's no way he's beating Chuck either. There's no way he's beating Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley, even though he probably hasn't played in a while, still got some moves, I'm sure. But there's no way you're going to beat Charles Barkley one-on-one. Now, back to Lonzo Ball. There's been a lot of questions about LaVar Ball's comments about Lonzo and whether or not that affects Lonzo's draft stock. To me, that does not affect Lonzo's draft stock whatsoever. To me, he's the number one pick in the draft, hands down. Whoever's number one has to take him unless you have an established point guard. Like if the Celtics had the number one pick, taking Lonzo may not be your best choice, but it also could be, and you can play him off. But, but to me, that doesn't affect the draft stock whatsoever. However, I can see why teams would think that it would, just because you don't want to draft a kid and then have his dad just constantly hang around and, say all these things and just be constantly just talking and talking and talking. It's kind of like situations like with little kids playing basketball, like 5th and 6th grade, where, a 5th grader only makes the team because the coach works with the kid's dad or something like that. Because I've been in similar situations like that before. Not me, but like teammates that I've had. But to me, he's the number one pick, hands down. Going to be a phenomenal player. He's going to be something special. He's special right now, and he'll be special when he gets to the league. I love the Ball family. I think LaMelo and Lonzo are going to be absolute studs in the NBA. LiAngelo, not so much, but I think he's going to be a good player. But, yeah. So, on to NFL free agency. It has been crazy so far. We'll first talk about Tony Romo. Tony Romo is probably the most sought-after quarterback in free agency, even though he's technically not a free agent yet. But the Broncos and the Texans are in the mix to get Tony Romo if he's released. To me, the best fit for Tony Romo is in Houston. They've got so many weapons on the outside of DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Braxton Miller. And they have Lamar Miller at running back, who's pretty decent. They have a stable offensive line, and they have a Super Bowl-ready defense. That defense is amazing with Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt on the outside. Now, they did lose A.J. Boye to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we'll talk about them later, but they did lose A.J. Boye, so yeah, their secondary is weakened a little bit, but their defense is still absolutely amazing. And I think if Tony Romo went to that team, they would be the third, maybe second best team in the AFC behind, obviously, New England. You're not going to get much better than New England. Belichick and Brady are they're the GOATs. And then I would put them behind Oakland because I love Derek Carr. I love Amari Cooper and Crabtree. If they can keep Latavius Murray, they have a good offensive line. Their defense is getting better. I would put Houston behind Oakland. And Derek Carr should have been in the MVP race, in the MVP conversation, even after he got hurt. Because when he got hurt, him not playing proved how valuable he was to the Oakland Raiders. And honestly, if Derek Carr wouldn't have gotten hurt, might have made it to the AFC Championship and played New England. But anyways, Tony Romo has also been looked at by Fox and CBS to be commentators Fox would be a great fit, I think. Working alongside Kevin Burkhardt, because John Lynch has taken the GM job with the San Francisco 49ers, and he's done great work there so far, in my opinion. But in order for that to happen, Tony Romo would have to retire, and I don't think Tony Romo wants to do that. I think he wants to continue playing, and the best places to go do that are in Denver and Houston. But it's still confusing to me why Jerry Jones has not let him go yet, because there is not a market for Tony Romo, because the value has been dropped to almost nothing, because you said you were going to release him, and then you said you were going to trade him, but after you're saying you're going to release him, there's almost no value. So you're not going to get anything for him. So the only option for the Cowboys is either to keep him or release him. To me, I think you keep him. Keeping him gives you an established backup who is excellent. He's got amazing numbers. He's the Cowboys franchise leader in literally every passing statistical category except winning. However, I don't think him losing in some of the playoff games he's played is all his fault. But to me, the Cowboys need to keep Tony Romo because it gives them a great backup behind Dak Prescott, who was sensational last year. In case Dak were to go down, have a bad stretch of games, Tony Romo can come in, hopefully keep the Cowboys rolling. But you would only be saving $5 million if you were to release Tony Romo. And realistically, what are you going to spend that $5 million on? Low-level players that are not going to play. And if they do, they're not going to play very much. So to me, you might as well keep him because you're going to be paying him $20 million regardless. But we'll see what happens with Tony Romo. On to the Jags defense. The Jacksonville Jaguars have made some big splashes on the defensive side of the ball. They signed defensive tackle Calais Campbell from Arizona to a 4-year, $60 million contract, $30 million guaranteed. That's a little bit of an overpay, although he is a great player. Really brings a solid pass rush to the Jags defensive line. The Jags also signed Barry Church to a 4-year, $26 million contract. He's a former safety for the Dallas Cowboys. And he is a great addition to the secondary. And they also signed A.J. Boye from the Houston Texans to a 5-year, $65.5 million deal. And that deal makes A.J. Boye the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. But with these additions, this really makes the Jaguars' defense a scary defense to play against. And really, I think this team as a whole in the next few years can be a real contender in the AFC. On the offensive side of the ball, they're looking at Latavius Murray at running back. And really, if they got Latavius Murray, that would give them a great running game behind a decent offensive line. And you have great weapons on the outside. Blake Bortles is an okay, decent quarterback. May not be the franchise guy, but with that offense, I think you can compete with anyone. And with that defense, I think you can stop anyone. I think that can be a top defense in the league here within the next few years. Maybe even next year. Who knows? But I think the Jags are trending towards being a real contender and a playoff team. But yeah, I really love what Jacksonville's done. And to think in the draft, if they were to draft O.J. Howard, tight end from Alabama, with the number 4 pick, that would make their offense even scarier because that's another weapon for Blake Bortles to throw to. And I mean, with all those weapons, you can't be bad. I mean, you're gonna win a fair bit of games with those weapons and that defense. So I really love what Jacksonville's done. So back to the New England Patriots. and Jimmy Garoppolo, there's been a lot of trade rumors surrounding Garoppolo, but the Patriots don't want to give up Garoppolo, which I think that's a smart move by New England. One, because you don't know how much longer Tom Brady has left. He says till he's 45. I don't think so. I say 2 to 3 more years, possibly 2 to 3 more Super Bowls. And number two, it really increases his value, which means if someone really wants him, they're going to give you a lot more. So saying that you're not taking any offers, it really makes him more valuable, because teams are going to offer more for him. And plus, he actually really could be the next quarterback for New England if he's willing to stay there long term. He could be the next great QB. He's got great coaching, a great culture, and a great front office that really takes care of their players and just does a great job. But I've heard that the Texans might want to trade for him. The 49ers have been involved. And to me, if you're either one of those teams, I'd do anything I can to get Jimmy Garoppolo. But what they've done with Jimmy Garoppolo is smart because it really boosts his value, which is great. The Patriots have made other great signings in free agency. They've probably been the most busy. They have spent the most money after winning a Super Bowl, like more money than the last 4 Super Bowl winners combined in the offseason after the Super Bowl. They've spent a lot of money on free agents, and they've really made their team significantly better, especially on defense. They re-signed linebacker Dante Hightower to a $43.5 million contract, $19 million guaranteed. That was a great re-signing by New England. You're keeping your leading tackler, who's been the leading tackler on your team since he came into the league. He made a huge stop to win a Super Bowl for you against the Seahawks a few years ago that set up the Malcolm Butler interception. He stopped Marshawn Lynch a couple yards short of the goal line. They traded for defensive lineman Coney Ealy from the Panthers, which I think is a solid pickup to replace Chris Long, who left in free agency. And they signed cornerback Stephon Gilmore from the Buffalo Bills, which was an outstanding pickup for their secondary. Him paired with Butler. Malcolm Butler is a scary duo and a great secondary. That's if the Patriots keep Malcolm Butler, though. And the Patriots probably got the steal of the last couple of years, trading for wide receiver Brandon Cooks from the New Orleans Saints. The Patriots traded their first-round pick, number 32 overall, and their third-round pick to the New Orleans Saints for Brandon Cooks and a fourth-round pick. To me, this is a ridiculous trade. There's no way that I would give up that much just for 2 picks from the Patriots. I don't know how New England got away with that, but New England is not keeping that 4th-round pick, though, just because of how uneven the trade was. There was too much value given to the Patriots than New Orleans, which I think is great. It makes it a better deal. Still not a great deal for New Orleans, though. I feel like if you would have included Malcolm Butler in the deal, that I would have been fine with that trade. That would have been a great trade for New Orleans because wanted out of New Orleans. And New Orleans would be fine without Brandon Cooks because they have the emergence of Michael Thomas, who had a fantastic rookie season. They have Willie Snead. So they would be fine without Brandon Cooks. But I did read something where that if the Saints signed Malcolm Butler, who is a restricted free agent, who is under the rookie tender placed on him by the Patriots, but if the Saints signed him, the Pats not only have the chance to match, But if they don't match, they get the Saints' number 11 pick of the first round in this year's draft. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't really get how that's possible. It must be something with the term rookie tender. I guess that means it's basically like a trade of some sort. I'm not really sure, how that works. I'm sure a lot of people I'm sure there's other people that understand it a lot better than I do. But I just thought that was interesting and kind of actually ridiculous, to be honest, because why would a team get rewarded for not signing their own free agent? They get rewarded by getting a top pick in the draft. It's just puzzling to me that happens. And the Patriots just seem to get lucky with these things all the time. I mean, it's like if you sign a Patriots player, you have to give up your pick. I mean, it's really, really puzzling how that works. I'm not really sure, and it's kind of annoying. But yeah. Over to DeMarcus Ware. Big news from him. He has retired after playing over 11 years in the league, playing for the Dallas Cowboys and the Denver Broncos. He accumulated over 138 sacks over his career and had 9 Pro Bowl selections. Now, to me, DeMarcus Ware is a for sure Hall of Famer. He's got a Super Bowl in Denver on that great defense, probably one of the greatest defenses of all time. With Von Miller and Ware and everyone else. But he is a for sure Hall of Famer. I loved him when he played in Dallas. He was an absolute stud. And I saw these numbers on the quarterbacks he's sacked the most times. He sacked Eli Manning the most, 14.5 times. And the second most, I believe, was Donovan McNabb with 7.5. But a great career, for sure, Hall of Famer. Would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. And I would definitely go to the Hall of Fame induction ceremony to see him get inducted. That would be really nice to see. But a great player, great career, and wish nothing but the best for him. Okay, over to Kirk Cousins. There's been a lot of talk about Kirk Cousins and whether or not, he's going to get traded. He's been franchise tagged for the second time in 2 years by the Washington Redskins. He is set to make $24 million this season. And he has signed that franchise tender, which means he will play for them in 2017 unless he is traded. But Kirk Cousins has lost a lot of weapons. He lost Pierre Garçon to the 49ers, who have made some big moves that I like. And Kirk Cousins also lost Deshaun Jackson to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay now has Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans. That is a scary duo to think about. And that would make Tampa Bay a really nice team and a good contender in the NFC. But there has been trade talks, with the 49ers. I know the 49ers were really trying to get him, and if I'm the 49ers, I'm doing anything I can to get him. I would trade my number 2 pick in the draft to get him. That may seem a little high, but if you want to establish a franchise guy who has had amazing numbers, it's high. It might be a little high of a risk because it's a high pick, but it's a lot of reward. But if I'm the Redskins, I'm making a deal fast. I want to try to get Kirk Cousins signed long term because he's a great quarterback. He's proved it. He's had such great numbers. But it's sad to see that situation is just really deteriorated. Over to the 49ers. The 49ers have made some great moves this offseason. They signed Pierre Garçon, receiver from Washington. that's a great pickup. That's a great weapon for their new quarterback, Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer really gives them great stability at quarterback. He's a quick fix until they find their next franchise guy. Um, and they also signed Matt Barkley as a backup, and I think he's a solid backup. I thought he played well in Chicago. I didn't like him coming out of USC, but I really liked what he did this year with Chicago, and I really love what John Lynch has done with the 49ers this year, and I think, with Carlos Hyde, Paragoson, Hoyer, they got a few pieces on defense. I think that franchise is now starting to trend in the right direction with John Lynch at the helm. He's done a fantastic job as GM to this point, and he's barely even, been around, but he's done great. Back over to the NFC East, the NFC East is looking a lot more competitive than it has in recent years. The Dallas Cowboys have lost a lot of defensive pieces, though. They lost Morris Claiborne, cornerback, to Baltimore, and they lost Barry Church to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's looking a lot weaker on defense for the Dallas Cowboys. And on offense, they did lose right tackle Doug Free to retirement after 10 seasons. So that leaves a void at right tackle for the Cowboys and that best offensive line in the league. And they did lose starting left guard Ronald Leary to the Denver Broncos. However, they do have Lyle Collins, who is recovering from injury, who was starting earlier in the season. So they're good at left guard, though. But it'll be interesting to see, what happens with Zeke, if Dak regresses or not. But I think the Cowboys could possibly be a dynasty in the making. Once Tom Brady has finally settled down and has come down to earth a little bit. The New York Giants made a huge acquisition of Brandon Marshall, veteran wide receiver from the New York Jets, who can still give you good numbers, good production, and he's a very good veteran presence, good leader for Odell Beckham, who can be a little sporadic at times. Brandon Marshall said that with him on the team, that boat trip in Miami does not happen, and I agree. I think Brandon Marshall is great for that team, great for that offense, and if the New York Giants can land AP, Adrian Peterson, that offense is scary. They have a Super Bowl defense, and it looks like the Giants and Cowboys will go at it in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles haven't done much in free agency. The Redskins did sign wide receiver Terrell Pryor from the Cleveland Browns, who put up great numbers last year. It was only 1 year, $8 million, though, which is a little perplexing because, he had a great year, and I thought he was a max money guy. Kind of not sure why the Browns didn't re-sign him. Might have been because Terrell Pryor's asking price was too high. But they do have over $100 million in cap space, though, so I can't imagine that there's a price that isn't too high. But anyways, a great move by the Redskins. So over to Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy has signed a 1 year, $5.5 million contract with the Seattle Seahawks. This move was a little confusing to me at first because they have Thomas Rawls, who played well in the playoffs last year, even though he has some injury history. CJ Prosise had a fantastic rookie season until he got hurt. They also have they had Christine Michael, but they let him go earlier in the year. But signing Eddie Lacy, I think, gives them more stability, and it gives them, a different look out of the backfield. He is really overweight, though. Is listed over 260 right now. And Pete Carroll hopes to get Eddie Lacy back down to 240 by the beginning of the season. To me, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this was a wasted deal for Seattle. I don't think he's going to be able to keep his body right. He doesn't treat his body well at all. And it's costing him. It's costing him long-term contracts. It's costing him money. It's costing him. It's doing harm to his body. He's been injured. He was out for the rest of the season last year with an ankle injury. But the Seahawks are still looking at Jamal Charles, looking to bring him in too with Lacy. That's more than likely not going to work. But yeah, so now the Seahawks have more stability at running back, and they're looking better. So we're done with NFL free agency for now, and we're gonna talk March Madness. The madness is upon us, folks. To me, this is the most competitive-looking bracket that we've had in a while, especially the South region. There's 4 teams potentially that could make the Final Four out of that side, out of that quarter of the bracket. You have North Carolina, you have Kentucky, you have UCLA, and you have Butler. And Butler is a really good team, really tough team. But as far as Cinderellas go, I don't think there's any clear Cinderella for this bracket. I mean, I really like Marquette. Marquette is the best three-point shooting team in this tournament. I feel like they can knock off Duke. They could possibly even knock off Nova, maybe. I doubt they're going to get that far, but I really like them, and I'm labeling them as my Cinderella, as a 10 seed. I really like Miami over on the other side of the bracket. They have an elite defense, and I think they can knock off Kansas in one of the later rounds and possibly even make the Final Four. But I really like Miami. And down below, I really like Cincinnati in the South. I think Cincinnati has a great chance of knocking off UCLA in the round of 32. This Cincinnati team looks different to me. They just seem a lot more balanced offensively and defensively. It looks like a different animal. And, to me, I think they have a great shot. This isn't the team. This team is not the same team that got beat by Yale and Harvard back-to-back tourneys. I feel like this is a Sweet 16 team. But I think that's about as far as they go. But one of the big questions being asked is if Gonzaga, number 1 seed Gonzaga, is overrated. I can go back and forth on this one because I can see them getting beat early by some team, but I can also see them making it to the national championship and possibly even winning. So I really don't know with them. They do have the easiest path to the Final Four, though. Them and Arizona, the 2 seed in the same region. So, and I feel like that is an Elite Eight matchup between Arizona and Gonzaga. And I feel like Gonzaga can win that game, beat Nova in the Final Four, get to the championship, and maybe even win. Beat a team like Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, UCLA, Butler. So, I feel like this is the best team that Gonzaga has had in a long time. And, I'd love to see them get it done finally because they've been kind of a disappointment over the last few years in the tourney. But I like what I see out of them because they're just really so balanced on offense and defense. And, one of the top 10 teams in the country on offensive and defensive efficiency. So I really love what they've done this year. They had one bad loss to BYU, but every team has a bad loss like that every once in a while. But speaking of disappointments, Iowa State, I feel like, is the team that's going to disappoint a lot of people this year because they disappoint people every year. It seems like every year they only go one or two rounds and then, they're out. They lost to UAB a couple years ago. Now they did win their conference title, and they've been trending in the right direction. And honestly, I could see them making the Final Four this year. This year could be different for them, but maybe not. So I don't really know with them. But I do think on the other side of the bracket, though, Duke, I think, might be just a little overrated. And just a little bit. They've been hot right now. They won their conference title, but that doesn't mean anything. For the most of the season, they were very inconsistent. And to me, I will take the larger sample size of inconsistency over the last 4 or 5 games in the ACC tourney. But Duke gives me doubts a little bit. Iowa State, Kansas does. They've been really, really inconsistent. They did lose to TCU early in their conference tournament. Granted, they didn't have Josh Jackson, but I don't think that's an excuse. I think they should have won that game regardless. Gonzaga could be a doubting team just because they haven't played a lot of people. They did beat Arizona, though, and some other teams. But, yeah. So another question being asked, and I find myself asking this question, is if Nova can repeat. Villanova is a great team, very balanced offensively and defensively. Josh Hart is an outstanding player. He's going to be one of the top picks in the draft, I think, top 10. And they really play a slow game. They really like to slow the game down. And I feel like that's going to work in their favor. They play great defense, and I feel like they're primed for another Final Four run, possibly even to another championship win. Who knows? But there's so much competition this year that any team can win. Really, any of the top seeds can win. But my Final Four predictions. I've got Villanova versus Gonzaga on the left side of the bracket. And then over on the other side, I've got Miami. Yes, Miami, number 8 seed Miami versus North Carolina. And keep in mind, Miami did beat North Carolina earlier in the year. They also lost, too. But I'm going to take North Carolina and Gonzaga to play in the title game. And I've got UNC winning that game 77-73. But really, to me, that game can be a coin flip, Gonzaga and UNC. I really don't know. It's 50-50. Like, I could see it happening either way. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with North Carolina. This is one of the better teams that Roy Williams has had in a while. And even though they did make the title game last year, I think this team is better than it was last year. So UNC over Gonzaga, 77-73. I'm excited for the tourney to start. They've had the playing games, but no one really watches them. Those don't really matter for the tourney, for the brackets. But yeah, let's see how it turns out. Let the madness begin, right? So yeah, that's it for today's podcast. I'm going to be posting every week, so check me out. I'm not sure what days, but thanks for listening. I'm going to create a group for March Madness Tournament Challenge. If you want to be in it, join it, challenge me, and let the madness begin, baby. Let's get it on. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week.